Turn! Die! Saith the Lord.
I think he said CARM. Die.
I thought I heard that too. I was like,
you ever replay that? I think he said CARM as in Matt Slick's ministry. you gotta go back like 15 seconds.
All right. Turn!
Yep, he said CARM.
It's time for another Bible thumping wingnut Google Hangout and podcast with Matt Slick from CARM.org. And now, here's your host, Andrew Rappaport.
Well, welcome to another edition of Slick Answers. This is one of the many podcasts on the Bible Thumping Wingnut Network. It's also a Google Hangout if you're watching live on Sunday nights. And we're glad to have you here. Want to start? This is a new year. And I just got in from driving back from Ohio, so I got here in time. I'm going to do something that, well, it may embarrass Matt a little, which he's probably giving me that look like, oh no, what's he going to do? But I want to make folks aware of something. If folks who are friends with Matt Slick online, you may already know this. But folks who appreciate the ministry of CARM.org and Matt Slick, Matt put out an appeal recently, was struggling whether to do this, but folks may not know that his wife has health issues and struggles a lot, and they have a huge amount of medical bills. And I'm going to just leave it at that. I'll let Matt share if he wants to share more, but basically they're in need. And a lot of folks contacted me after seeing that and asked, how can we help Matt out? Well, there's a couple ways. And a lot of people thought, well, can we donate to CARM? Well, you could. That, of course, helps the CARM finances. But if you want to directly help Matt Slick and his wife with their medical bills, some folks said, can we do a GoFundMe? Well, there's something you could do, and you actually get some benefit in doing it. And that would be to go to patreon.com. That's P-A-T REON.com/Matt Slick. And if you go there, what you're going to find is that Matt has a Patreon page, and the importance of that Patreon page is that it goes directly to Matt, not to CARM. That way, it's not going to CARM's bottom line and helping it, which helps. I mean, obviously, CARM needs help as well. But if you want to help them with their medical expenses, Matt, I don't know if you want to share any more than that. But if folks want to be able to help Matt out that way, I want to encourage you to go to patreon.com/Matt Slick. The advantage to you in doing that is Matt puts out like weekly videos that are very helpful, very educational. And so you would be able to get those. So I want to just encourage you with that. I'm trying to look to see if I could find the post that Matt put out to see what what specifically he put there, so I don't say anything. So Matt, you can share whatever you want in that, but I just want to start off with that.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I put up a post. I wrestled with it on Facebook, but I wanted to do it largely in part, was because I wanted to document, so to speak, how God's going to provide for us, because I know he's going to. I just don't know how. But our situation's a little bit tough. And it's tough in that my wife has, too many details, but she has a connective tissue disorder. And that's the most dangerous one that she's got of other orders. Like she's got osteoporosis, and she cracks ribs pretty easily when she throws frying pans at me and hits me upside the head. It's not good for her to do that. She cracks things, and so that lays her out for a while. And then she's got allergy to wheat, and so there's that. But this thing called her connective tissue disorder, and people don't realize that the human body is held together by tissue, but this tissue has stuff in it, And it's the stuff, it's like duct tape. Just think of duct tape, so to speak, that holds you in place so you can run, jump, breathe, have your heart beat, your valves work and things like that, your joints be in place. And so this, so to speak, duct tape with her is frayed and loose. And so the things that hold her in place aren't as solid, aren't as good. One of the areas is her heart. And her heart valve needs to be replaced. We found out just a couple weeks ago. And her heart is more than double size because of this. The heart has to work extra hard because it's not efficient, because this heart valve is regurgitating blood. And so it works even harder and harder, gets larger and larger, and that'll kill you. So she has to have this done. And the complication is that she has this connective tissue disorder. Well, nobody here in Idaho can do the surgery. Nobody here is qualified, which means we have to go out of state. And the only one that she knows, that she trusts to do the surgery, used to live in Salt Lake City and has moved to Phoenix. So we're trying to get the insurance to recognize that for us to go to Phoenix so she can, what? Tucson? That's where he lives? And Tucson, Arizona. I just say Phoenix generically, the area. But he's in Tucson. And so anyway, the way it stands right now, the insurance doesn't cover it because it's out of state. Oh, and they just raised our insurance. The stuff we do have for, they just raised it $330 a month. And that's like, what? Because we're already strapped. So anyway, so this insurance out of state, well, the only way we can get this insured is if some group or something, I'm waiting for her to look at me and give me correct information, does an analysis or something and permits the insurance to cover the surgery there. And we don't know if it's going to happen. And if it doesn't, then we're going to see if they'll do the surgery without insurance. And then which means we incur huge debt. And then there's another little bit of a problem. This is more of a personal problem for me, and which is nothing compared to what she's got to go through. But to be honest, I hate the idea of going to the desert. I do. I absolutely hate it. There's no way I'd want to move to Arizona, period, ever. It's not on my radar. And but I will for my wife. But I want to get a place, if we move, well, we have to move, that has water next to it. Because I want to be an oceanographer. I like water. And the idea of just dirt and rocks everywhere is psychologically, emotionally depressing. So I'm really hoping we can get something with a pool and or a waterfront and have a lot of it there. But to do that, we have to sell our house. But to sell our house, we got to get it ready. And which we don't have the funds right now to do that with. And so, or the knowledge how to, I got to figure it out. You just do what you got to do when you do it. But so that's not a big deal, but I'll figure it out. And but if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do it if the insurance doesn't go through, and if they'll do the surgery without insurance, we would have to be able to sell the house and move down there before we do the surgery, because if we have that debt on us, we won't be able to get a loan. So that's how it is, and it's a lot of stress, a lot of strain, and the Lord's going to provide one way or another. I don't know how He's going to, but that's not my concern. That's His. So I'm going to be doing what I can, be writing books and stuff, and hopefully things will work out. That is our situation. So we don't have all the info yet, even when we're supposed to go down there for her to get a consult. There's plenty of tests done on her, and the people down in Tucson ordered the discs, their video discs, picture discs, so that when the guy sees it, what's his name, Dr. Bowl? When Dr. Bowl sees them, then they'll talk, she and he or whoever will talk about the next step. The next step is either get her in right now to do surgery, or you're okay for 6 to 8 to 10 months, whatever it is, and come on down when you can, or whatever. You know, we don't know, and so we've got to figure out all that stuff, and that's still up in the air. And there you go. That's it. How about that for fun?
So that is for folks who are listening, and I'm saying this, I have no problem encouraging you to donate both to CARM and to Matt Slick, because I do both. So I have no problem encouraging the rest of you to do that. I'm not telling you to do anything that I don't do, but the issue is that, folks, here's a case where you can help someone that's been helping you. For those who have been blessed by CARM, blessed by the ministry Matt's done, please consider going right now to patreon.com and /Matt Slick and going out and supporting him there. You'll also get access to the weekly videos he does. Some of them are even pretty good.
I messed up on the last one. There's no sound, so that means I got to do 2 now next week coming up, and apologize to the people. I don't know what happened. I had everything done right, but I guess I didn't. But you know how things work.
Oh, I'm looking. I'm excited. I didn't get to watch that one, but now that's going to be the best. To just actually, it won't be good either. No.
Thanks a lot. You're always so supportive.
So what did you do for Christmas and New Year's, Matt, while we wait for some folks to come in with questions? And anyone that's in here right now that has questions, just drop them in the chat.
Well, we didn't do a whole bunch. We just kind of hung around. We weren't going to go anywhere, obviously. But, you know, we had people over. We had the kids over, and that was fun. Good time. And we had people over for New Year's, and they all left by 11:30. And that was that. We, you know, a good time. It was fun.
So
how about you?
Well, and I'll say that, but folks who want to come in, I should have said in the beginning that if you want to join and ask Matt any questions, it's an open hangout tonight. So any questions, any subject, but other than, you know, what color socks he has, because he's probably not wearing any. But no, but there's a link to join in the video that you're watching. You could just hit refresh if you don't see it. It should be there. So yeah, I didn't do much. I did just get back from Ohio. Took my daughter, got set up. She's starting a new job at a hospital. She's going to be doing research on for hepatitis C. So
wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
She's going to be doing that at so she's going to start that, and so she got a new place, and so we were kind of doing the parent thing. Drove out to Ohio to help her out, and she you know, and she moved into a new place, and it was like one of these things where my wife, and Matt, you know my wife, so my wife is like, oh, you know, do you need this? Do you need that? Do you need this? And so
and you're thinking, ching, ching.
No. It was stuff like pots and pans that my wife was saving for her. And we get to the place, and it's like they have all the dishes and the pots. My daughter gave me 2 boxes to take back.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, that's good.
It was good. It was a good weekend. Got to meet her boyfriend's parents. They came down just to meet with us, and so it was kind of had some fun. So I don't know if you froze or I froze. Let me see. Let me turn my camera off. That usually. Matt is frozen, or at least looks like he's frozen.
Testing.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now?
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Am I okay?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably. I will go without turning the camera on.
Well, I was asking you if she took my dating advice.
No, because he, you know, even though she thought your dating advice was really good, actually, you met her boyfriend
At the same place?
the same. Yeah, he was there that night at the other end of the table, and it was funny because when he came, Michael Coughlin, who you may remember from Ohio, who would run that conference, he when my daughter came, he turned and said, so is this a boyfriend with her? And I said, no, they're just friends. And he said, oh, sure they are. Well, Michael was correct.
Cool.
So, but yeah,
Well,
he's not
good.
annoying at all. I will say this. I will say this, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this. So I thanked him this week. I walked over, I thanked him, and he looked at me. He's like, what are you thanking me for? And I just turned. I said, you know, I went to go and open the door for my wife, and my daughter stood at the door because he now has her trained to wait for him to open the door. She waited for me to open the door, which I've never been able to get. Like, I keep telling her she should do that.
Uh-huh.
Well,
That was
so
part of my advice. Make sure he does that. That's
yeah,
right.
that was one of the things you said, and
That's right. I remember you were panicking when you heard I'm talking to your daughter. Hey, dating advice. You're like, no, you're gonna dive over the table. But yeah, it turned out okay.
well, when she said that your dating advice made sense, that's where I really got nervous.
You really got worried.
Never
Thanks
had
a lot.
grandchildren. That's it.
Something's wrong. It's deep. Something's really bad.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, why don't you explain what the dating advice you gave to my daughter was?
Oh, really simple stuff. Simple stuff like I literally told her this stuff. Make sure he opens a door for you. Now, of course, sometimes guys are going to slip. That's okay. But he has to be willing to take care of you. Open the door for you is one of the ways he does that. And does he protect you? Does he guard you? And those little ways and things like that. One of the things I'll do with my wife is I hold my left hand pinky with her right hand index finger. She works on my left side all the time. And that's because I'm free with my right arm, my stronger arm to protect. That's one of the reasons. Just things like that. And I tell her that. So I was telling your daughter about this kind of stuff, the attitude that the boy's got to have about protecting. Not he's a knight in shining armor type thing, but he's got that concern going. Open the doors and pulling chairs out, and not right as she's sitting, but as help her sit down properly. Just things like that. And I said one of the things to do is you go on a date with a guy, bring your Bible, and gets in the car. Make sure he opens the door for you, and stand there if you have to. Wait for him to do that. And when he comes up to the house, he doesn't honk to have you come out. He comes up to the door, talk to the dad, make sure, and mom and dad, make sure everything's cool. He gets checked out, opens the door, the whole bit. Take a Bible in the car and just open it, or just hand it to him and say, because he's only going to be a Christian, of course, and you say, I don't care where you go, just open it to any place in the Bible and just teach me for a minute to say that. And she looked at me like, what? Are you serious? I go, yeah, I'm serious. And if the guy tries but doesn't do really well, that's okay. But if he says anything like, why would I want to do that? Get out of the car and just you're done. Something like that. And stuff like that I was saying. I forgot other things, but stuff like that.
Well, you talked about the bewilder filter. That's where I got nervous.
Bewilder. And girls have a bewilder filter, and I was telling her how guys, if they're smart like me, they can activate the bewilder filter along with the mothering instinct drive, and a woman will undoubtedly come out to think that she likes you, and then you marry her before it clears up, her brain clears up, but it's too late for her. So that kind of thing, bewilder filter. You say to a girl, "You're going to wear that tonight." What she's hearing is, "Oh, you think I'm fat and ugly?" Just bewilder filter. And so you activate the mothering instinct drive by having her over your place, and then you go to the washing machine with your reds and your whites and your blues and greens all in one lump as you start shoving them into the dryer or into the washer, and she panics because that's the wrong thing to do. Well, that activates the mothering instinct drive. She probably will call you some stupid names like, jerk and whatever, and then punch you in the arm a couple of times. That's definitely good. It's well activated at that point. And then you have to be slightly irritating and annoying, just enough, not too much, go and drive her away, but just a little bit irritating and annoying. And that's one of the ways to do it. And what happens is the bewilder filter kicks in, and she starts thinking about you more and more, and she interprets it to think that she likes you. That's how it works. Because you're being irritating and you've activated the mothering instinct gene, the bewilder filter kicks in, they think they like you. It works. It's simple. I have it written down in my book. So if you want expert advice, you go check it out.
And the name of that book is?
The name of the book is How to Woo and Win Women by Being an Obnoxious Jerk.
I just love that. And that's an actual book, and
It
it's
is.
on it's on Amazon. You can pick it up today.
Yeah, it is. It's there. I don't push it too much, but I only got, I think, 1 or 2 or 3 reviews. Not like The Influence, but which I'll be working on pretty soon. I just finished a novella and atheistic, no, apologetics and series, apologetics and doing atheism, apologetics and Mormonism and Catholicism. And I finished I just did both of them, atheistica, my novella and
So
stuff.
you completed Atheistica?
Yeah,
That's done.
it's done.
Is it out on Amazon?
No. It's. I got to get an editor to go through it.
Okay.
Because Anik's edited it, I've edited it, but we just need a third eye and a completely objective. And then what I'll do is I'll publish it on self-publish it, CreateSpace, and then when I get both of those done, then I will work wholeheartedly on the second novel, on my second full-fledged novel. Hopefully, pay some bills.
Someone named Ed.
What's that?
You need someone named Ed to edit
Ed,
it.
the editor. Yeah, he's good.
Ed to edit it.
Yeah, we've actually got people who, like I was looking at one email tonight. I got to check it out where it came from, but at any rate, people are interested in maybe editing. So I got to pick one and just get it done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that book. Why don't you give a quick synopsis of Atheistica?
Yeah, Atheistica. I think it's 23,000 words. I think it's a novella, and it's not meant to be real flowery, but it was just an experiment, and I thought I'd continue with it, and I finally finished it. But it's there's a guy who's super rich, atheist guy, computer programming guy, and billionaire kind of a thing. And there's a new island that forms in the middle of the ocean. He buys it and then revamps it to be a city, an island that has roads and hospitals and everything. Then he makes it an atheistic nation. And things start going wrong because people are people. And then they have meetings, and they get a guy called a contrarian, who's supposed to find out problems. And let's just say things don't go well. And that's the idea of it. So one atheist is already really pissed off at me because he said that I'm going to make the atheists look really evil and stupid. And I in no way do that. Nick, you're an atheistic. Would you say that I presented the atheists as intelligent and competent and normal people? She said, "Yep." So there's bad guys, there's good guys, and the main character, Gunther, his name's Gunther. He's a real good guy, real intelligent and compassionate, and loves his wife and good man. On a humanistic level. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and that's more than they do for us when they do their books and things and describe Christians. So
Yeah, when they do Christians, they'll represent us as can't thinking, not being able to think, bigoted, full of evil, things like that. And there's definitely some bad guys in the novella, but they don't represent atheistic thought. I don't push them there as that. If anything, I have people being competent, being intelligent, very, like in the case of Gunther and his wife, they're just, you'd want them as neighbors, that kind of thing. It's just that when you get a bunch of people together in a situation where problems start arising normally, because that's just society, where the society works well at the beginning, as people start dividing, because the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, kind of a thing, and there's problems, and they want solutions, and they want to make the right kind of solutions. So anyway,
yeah. So I'm gonna let's see. I'm trying to remember who this is, but I think he's been on before, and I'm trying to pronounce it right, but Arion. I think I did it wrong before last time too.
You did. That's okay.
Say it again.
It's Aaron, just like Moses' brother.
All right. So go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah.
And
Well, it really basically comes down to this. How do you know when you're being too critical of a particular sermon or a particular church or a particular topic? So you have talked to me. As a matter of fact, Matt, I'm here in the Boise area.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So we churches and so forth. And there's a particular church that we've visited, and I tend to be more critical, theologically speaking, over churches and preachers and sermons than my family is. And so that makes it kind of difficult because they'll look at a church in a certain way and think it's great, where I look at what's being preached and so forth, and it's not. Went to a church this morning, actually by myself, that a church that my wife and daughter like, but I particularly don't, but I wanted to go there on my own. And the sermon, the guy actually said up front, I'm going to interpret this scripture through the lens of community. Nothing to do with community, but the church is starting their community groups.
What's the scripture he was
And
using?
so it was Colossians 1 through 15.
Community?
Yes. And how Paul viewed community. And one of the points was he used the word we. Okay.
All right. Well, to see the pericope can be used that way because it's a long pericope, 1 through 15.
Right.
I would wonder if there's some aspects in there that could be drawn out
It
to the same. Okay.
It was completely bad, but to me, it kind of seemed self-serving to push community groups. And it was kind of like an infomercial with
it's finding a text.
backdrop.
And some of that can be done and not done. Finding a text to say what you want to say. Now, if the text says it, that's okay because if the Holy Spirit's working through you. But if it doesn't say it, you want to make it's a problem, right?
So I'm sitting there and listening to it, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm just kind of going through my head about, I just am not on par with how he's going and using the scripture, especially when he says, view this through the lens. I'm thinking, I said Jesus. So I'm but then I'm also thinking to myself, am I being too critical? So I'm just kind of thinking, how do you and you as well, Andrew, and others, when you listen to someone or whatever, how do you keep yourself from being too critical on someone? And how do you know you're kind of going over the line? Because that's what I don't want to, I don't want to find fault in everything and everybody.
Well, what I try and do is just see, is he representing the scripture accurately to the best of my ability? My wife and I checked out a church a few weeks ago we'd heard about in Meridian. And so we went and we checked this church out, and a new church growing by leaps and bounds. And so we always sit in the back. And what we heard was a sermon on real light scripture and lots of stories, lots of empathy. And I have no desire to go back, none, because I don't want that. I want Word of God. Well, if someone says, I'm going to look at this in the light of community, I'd go, okay, does that verse support it, that section support it? Because it does say to the saints, okay, laid up for you. I could see that as long as he wasn't ripping it to shreds. If it's in there,
right?
Okay, but you got to hear it. You got to, it's subjective,
right?
But, it's tough. So I go to Calvary Chapel, in Eagle, and so when I listen, it's hard because I have to say, well, I guess what they preached on today. An elder preached, and he preached on Ephesians 1. which has election predestination in it, and he read through stuff, and I'm like, he went like through 15 verses or so, and really
Yeah.
quickly, putting it together as a large thing, and that's okay. Me, I'd have done a sermon on each verse, but it
Yeah.
just depends what they want to do, So it's hard.
Well,
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you.
Well,
yeah.
I-
I definitely have the.
let me give a good answer.
I'm sorry.
That you have, because there is something I think does help both Matt and I. We've talked about this in the past, and it's the fact that both Matt and I know that there are areas of our theology that we're wrong. We don't know where they are, but we do know that we don't have a perfect theology.
You really
And
don't.
when Matt gets to heaven, he's going to agree with more of my theology than his. but no, I mean, the point being is we both recognize that we believe we're right, but the fact is that when you approach someone else with the fact that you realize that you're not perfect, it
Right.
makes it a lot easier to recognize what they're saying. The other thing is that what you'll often see, and you see this a lot with Matt if you watch him, trying to understand what someone's saying and what they mean by what they say instead of assuming what they mean.
Yeah.
A lot of people get frustrated with Matt because he'll start to ask clarifying questions. Well, why is he doing that? Because he doesn't want to misrepresent them. He wants to deal with what they actually believe, not with what he thinks they believe. And that too is that's, I think, helps him. I get to see it as a bystander, but you watch it and it helps to prevent some of that criticalness. Now, the flip side is when you do as much debate as someone like Matt does, you can kind of get into a debate mode, and we all have to be aware of that and conscious of that.
Yeah, I'm very conscious of that too. I think I have a reputation within my family of I'm the token Calvinist in my family. Matter of fact, I told my family, if a Christmas gift that you can give me is to sit down and watch the movie Calvinist with me. That I had to sit through The Shack with them. The least they can do is sit and watch the Calvinist with me.
They wanted to watch The Shack.
I know. I thought my wife's like, "How can you have an opinion on it? You haven't even seen it yet." And I said, "Well, I haven't eaten poop yet, but I know it doesn't taste good."
I'd be glad to come over to your house, have a discussion with your family, because maybe they'll listen to someone who's not you. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, I said the reason why I can have an opinion on it is because I've listened to people like you, Matt, and Andrew, and other people who have read it that I greatly respect and look to, and see what they say before I jump in and say, hey, I want to open up my family to this. So I'm trying to be discerning about it. Now, they went and they loved the movie, and so we had a discussion afterwards and so forth. So I know it's horrible.
Well, here'd be a question you can ask your family if they're challenging on that: is ask them if they've ever, I don't know the background, but you ask them if they have no background in drug abuse or drug usage.
Right.
Ask them, is drugs wrong? And they'll say, well, yes. Yeah. Have you done it?
Right.
Well, no. How do you know it's wrong? I mean, because all you're doing there is taking their logic,
right,
and applying it to a different situation.
Or saying, well, then to that extent, a doctor who does brain surgery can't do brain surgery unless he himself has had brain surgery.
No, Aaron, I'm serious, man. I'd be glad to come on over, and if they would listen to me, if that would do anything. If not, who cares? To have a discussion, because the issue of the shack is really an important foundational thing, and you're trying to be the spiritual leader. So,
right,
you got to take. One of the things about being a spiritual leader in the home is you have to decide what level of leadership you're going to take.
Right.
Now, the church that my wife and I went to, my wife is really good in that she knows what to look for in a sermon. She knows what is important. She happens to be Reformed, and which I didn't even know about until a few years ago when I finally asked her. But
right.
The thing is, we're pretty much spot on, identical. She knows what to look for. You got to train your family for the same thing. It just may take some time.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I'm hoping part of being a leader is not only you leading, but their willingness to follow, and that's not something you can always control. But that doesn't negate the fact that you're still supposed to lead. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, how about this? I mean,
but
there's options. One is you can check out different churches. They want to go, and I know why they want to go there, because it's hip.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
The music's cool. Really nice this, really nice that. They feel good about it. All right.
Yeah.
And women need to connect. The kids need to connect, and there's a lot to connect there with. Now the thing is, my wife and I decided we're going to give them one more time, because maybe that was just one sermon that wasn't particularly good, and we'll see. But one of the things you could do is, and you got to decide, if you were to go there for a while, you say, let's go there for 1 month. Let's go to someplace else for 1 month, or whatever it is you do. And you analyze the sermon with her. Is this what the text really says? She's got to see the truth as you lead.
Yeah.
And you may have to pull rank and say, nope, we're not going there. It's a bad church. It's not happening. I mean, not saying it's a bad church for listening. It just may be that you don't need it, right?
There's definitely a pattern that I've seen with churches like that, and you're right about why I've come to the conclusion that if the pastor's wearing skinny jeans, that's a red flag to me.
Unless you're in Southern California, wear shorts and flip flops. Yeah,
right. But
here in Idaho, you're trying too hard.
I know. But what happens is they'll not this particular church. I'm saying just churches in general, kind of that along this line. They'll say a verse or reference a verse and then go off on a tangent, and suddenly it's not about the verse. It's about these stories that are somewhat intricate, really, and there'll be truisms.
That's what I picked up at that church, because we went to the same one. That's exactly what I picked up on. My wife said the same thing. Because what's this? What are we doing here? Yeah. I don't want a tangent. I don't want stories unless they're directly related to the text to illustrate the text. But the text is primary, and that was not the case the one time I went there.
And I'm looking at the verses that's being referenced, and I'm thinking there's so much meat here, value that you could that a person could extrapolate from within the Bible without having to look the lens of community. If you just let it speak for itself, there's so much depth in there, just in those 15 verses that he was going to speak about. And but sometimes they'll wrap around, or they'll come back at the very end and reference that verse one more time, just to kind of put a bow on it. But sometimes not. And so I would like to find a church that starts with Scripture, continues through Scripture, ends with Scripture.
Try the well.
And that's what's that?
Try the well.
Try the well. Yeah. Yeah.
You know where that is? Do you know where the well is?
What's that? Oh, the well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the well. Yes. Yes, I do. That's where you Wednesday nights.
Yeah. I mean, you may like it, may not like it. Out here in Nampa, there is Sovereign Grace Church, and the pastor's a great Reformed guy. It's good, but it's not like this up and coming hipness that this church has got.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also Chad Pridmore's out there.
Chad Pridmore, he has a service at the well on Sundays, like at 4:00 or something.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, it wasn't. My question was just more not necessarily about church, but just myself, and I don't want to be hypercritical.
Right.
I don't want to be the type of person that finds fault in everything.
I do.
What's that?
I do.
You do.
I don't like what you just said, as a matter of fact. So there.
But
come out to Calvary Chapel with us sometime, even though it's Calvary Chapel. But they're good folks there.
Yeah,
I
know there's good folks actually at this church. My son is starting to date a young lady whose parents go there. But anyway, it's just more about how do I keep myself in check, and just so that I don't. That's a concern of mine. I don't want to be the type of guy that finds fault in everything.
Well, here may be a neat way you could do it. And what I did in the the description here, I dropped a link to CARM. And if you just go to
Yeah.
carm.org, and it's carm.org/ you could search Lies We Believe About God by Paul Young Quotes. And what I'd say you do with your
Is that a
family
new website? Is that a new
Just-
website? Has that been around for a while?
carm.org. Yeah, it's brand new.
Oh, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Just it's in its infancy stage.
Right. One of these days we'll get together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
we're trying to get together. Oh man.
I appreciate the link. That's
yeah, but I mean, what I would say you do is just literally don't say where you got the quotes.
Yeah.
Don't say who the quotes are from.
Yeah.
I would just go with those quotes and read the quotes to your family and ask them what they think about them. And if they start saying, "Well, that's wrong. That's bad theology. That's just no, I shouldn't believe that," you could say, "Well, this is from the author of The Shack."
Yeah.
See, let them come to that conclusion on their own.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
And then you could go into, the CARM quotes from The Shack. There's a lot of stuff there. And then from there, when they're going, wow, this is important stuff, you could say, let's go into the word and look at what the word actually says and say, well, this is why sermons should be this way, a certain way. And then what happens is you teach your wife this. After a while, she'll look at the sermon, she'll comment on the way home. That wasn't very good and she'll nail it.
It's funny. I was just in Indiana, where I'm originally from over, and I don't mean to take up the time if other people want to talk. I'm originally from Indiana, was back there over the holidays, and my mom and bred Nazarene, and some other things, and we've had a lot of theological discussions because on the same reservation as she was, or she is, theologically speaking, and she knows that, and so it's kind of been we've not butted heads, but we've had some really good conversations about theology stuff and around Calvinism and Reformed theology and so forth. I had a great compliment from her today. She actually called me. She went to a church out in Louisville, Kentucky with my sister, and they were like, as we were sitting there listening to me, she said, I was thinking, what would Aaron think about this sermon? And I wonder what he's saying here. If that really is true, I should go back and double check. And really done before. And I'm like, yes, I don't care if she agrees with me or not, at least. And I'm like, I told her, I said, good job, Mom. I mean, that's, whether or not she comes to the same conclusion as I do, I don't care. At least she's being discerning and wanting to check on herself, because she said it perfectly. She says, I just don't want to be lied to anymore. And neither do I. So
really? That's huge.
Yeah, it's massive. So I was really happy to hear that. So, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Hey, cool, man. Yeah, you ever want to get together, let me know, man. We're in the same area, so no big deal.
Have you been to why don't you go? Have you been to the Bible studies that Matt does?
I've not, only because of work. I tend to have late meetings. The job that I do requires me to have meetings with people over in Asia, and because of the time zone difference, it's typically at night. So
we're thinking about moving it to Thursdays. So,
but
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to keep up, and thanks for letting me know or talking about kind of what's going on with you, because I do want to contribute to the Patreon and stuff. That sounds like a difficult place to be. So
yeah, it's tough.
You're in the area. What I suggest is you should go out to lunch with Matt and just make sure you pay. He really loves that. He really
jerk. Yeah, man.
And every time we go out, it's someplace like really expensive, like Chandler's or Barbacoa or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Man, I was just telling somebody Wednesday night about that. Gosh, jerk.
Hey, I would actually love to get together with you, Matt.
Sure,
I know you've been looking for an editor and stuff. If you're still looking, let me know.
Well, I'm looking for somebody who can edit, but they had to be qualified. One guy loved his post. He wrote, I edit muy good, or something stupid. It was great. I loved it. But
he's the perfect editor for you.
Yeah, it was great. Well, one guy, he's an editor in England, and he has a business, editing business, and edited various theological and academic works. I'm like, wow, But at any rate, he's out of Wales, so I'm gonna email him. Whatever.
I'm gonna put my contact information in the chat
Sure.
stuff. I would love to have coffee or something with you sometime.
Hey, sure, no problem, man. You always the way to do it is just go to info. Just call me. Just email me. Hey,
Yeah,
that's what to do it.
Yeah,
Sounds
on the
good.
CARM website is the I think the phone number, right, Matt, for
Oh, right.
Yeah, for the office.
the office. So
If it's plugged in,
call
it's not plugged in right now.
God bless, guys. Take care.
God bless. All right.
So Matt,
Yeah.
we had a guy in YouTube that didn't want to come in and talk to you
Hmm.
because you're a hyper Calvinist.
I am.
who
I didn't realize
cursed-
that.
And now the irony is he goes by the name Student of Theology.
Okay.
As a student of theology, don't you think he should know the difference between Calvinism and hyper Calvinism?
Well, maybe he's been misled, but yeah, I would think that he would, try and get that right. But yeah, I'm not a hyper Calvinist. Hyper Calvinism is heresy. So, if you've got a question, I'd be glad to answer it
Yeah,
or try to.
Well, his question was why are you cursing? But I'm like going, I have no idea what he's referring to. Told him to
Use
come
the word
in.
crap. Was it word? What they said? Word crap?
Maybe. Which
I don't
and
know.
that there are certain, and there is a thing, there are certain words that are not considered foul language in different parts of the world and different parts of the country even.
Right. In fact, my seminary professor and I went and did something at the New Age convention in San Diego together one time. And on the way back, he used the SHIT. I'm like, what? And he says, oh, and he goes, I'm sorry. He said in their community where he grew up, it's not a cuss word at all.
Yeah.
And I went, okay.
I was listening, R.C. Sproul passed away. I was listening to some old sermons and teachings of his, and he's talking about Balaam and uses the different word over and over instead of a donkey. And it's like, oh yeah, like you forget, oh yeah, that's not actually foul language. It actually has a real meaning. Yeah.
That's right. Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, it works. No big deal.
So,
but yeah, I got in trouble for that. They said crap. I said crap on the radio a couple of times. They go, oh, we don't consider that to be a cuss word, but some people, they get offended by that. So I stopped just because I don't want to needlessly offend somebody, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had it happen where I use the word, for when you get upset with someone, and it's a term for urinating, but that's.
Oh, I said piss me off. That's what I said. Yeah. That's what I said earlier.
And
right.
so in Jersey, that's not, I guess no one even thinks of that, but someone from down south was like, say, that was foul language. I was like, oh, really? I just never saw it that way. Actually,
right, I don't
either. One you'll get a laugh out of, because it's someone you know. So, but literally, my very first conversation that I ever had with Justin Peters.
Yeah.
And Matt's showing off his Jericho cup.
I was just saying, I'm listening. Do you have Justin Peters? Who's a great guy.
Yeah, great guy. And so, literally, he used a word, in Yiddish that many people, I hear them use it, and they don't realize that it's actually slang for a certain male body part. And
wow.
he like, when I said to him, I said, do you know what this word means? And he was like, well, it kind of means like a jerk, right? And I said, no. Let me tell you exactly what it. So he was like, oh no. that was my first meeting with Justin Peters.
Yeah, he's a great guy though. But yeah, so I try to be sensitive about it. I'm just from Southern California, and that we use those words like that casually. That's just what it is. So
yeah, and
whatever.
And there is a point where certain words do, because of culture, lose some of that meaning, and certain become, I think, a little bit, depending where you're at, some people see it as an issue. And I think that we need to always be trying to be on the side of not using words that could use that or could be, because one of the things is culture does change, but we don't want culture to define things.
Right.
But language, especially found language, is defined by culture. I mean, the word for a female dog is now found
Yeah.
language, and yet
Right.
it's a proper term, right? And that becomes an issue. So,
Right. We got to be, sensitive to that.
yeah, and actually, maybe this will get it interesting. But speaking of language and change, the next person we have here has a language I never understand him, and that's Thaddeus Trill. So, so Thaddeus, you can unmute yourself, but you'll quickly hear that Thaddeus uses. I never understand what he's saying, brah.
It's not that hard. Shoot. Act like I'm speaking Swahili or something.
Yeah. So, what question do you got for Matt tonight?
All right. So, I had a question about, Matt, how you feel like, don't take this the wrong way or nothing, but how you feel your specific religion, like with its specific set of folklore texts, is the right one only, and the rest of them are kind of whack. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying the Bible ain't on point a lot of times, but I mean, how you think your faith be like keeping it 100 all the time?
Well, the eyewitness accounts wrote about the resurrection of Christ. He's the only one to do that and fulfill prophecy. So therefore, I trust what it says. That's how come it's right. And Jesus says he's the only way. And so I trust him since he claimed to be God in flesh, walked on water, rose from the dead.
Okay, but I mean, like, now don't get it twisted, bro. But I mean, how does that saying that make that particular one the only like legit one? Because any written text
Because
down here could say that kind of thing, you know?
Because Jesus said he's the way, the truth, and life. Nobody comes to the Father but by him. So he negates all other systems.
So just by it being in there, that negates the rest of it.
Yeah.
So therefore, if there was another religion that came along and it has other things negate other things, then would you throw out the Bible?
If they could, if they had someone who died and physically rose from the dead, like if you remember what I said here, walked on water, died, rose from the dead, and fulfilled prophecy. I threw those things in there. You have that from any other religion, fine, great. It's not going to happen because there is no other religion out there that's got documents that we don't already know about, that are thousands of years old, that have detailed prophecies in there, and the Gospels are written by the eyewitnesses. And so, if you can find something that matches that, then we can they can have their day in court. But there's nothing like that, period. So
okay, so you only stick with so you basically only stick with one specifically and don't bother looking at them all like as a whole.
Why should I? If Jesus Christ fulfilled the prophecies in detail, walked on water, calmed a storm with his command, fed people, raised people from the dead, and rose from the dead himself, and the eyewitnesses wrote down what they saw, why should I look anyplace else?
Might help you understand your own religion even more better in that sense.
Oh, I have looked at Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, Christian Science, Unity, Baha'i, Islam, Roman Catholicism, the Raelians, Scientology, Eckankar, Unity School of Christianity. I've looked at the Way International. I've looked at all kinds of stuff, and boy, does it help me understand that Christianity is the only truth, and Jesus is who he said he was. I've done that. See, what's funny is you're asking me, what about this? What about that? I've done it. I've done it. The thing you want me to do is think about this. You want me to look at other religions. What if they said this? I've looked at them. Go to my website. You can see the fact that I've looked at them. You can see that I've studied the issues of the prophecies, the resurrection, the eyewitness accounts, the reliability of the Bible. I've done the homework. There is no other religion that comes close to what Christianity offers, period. Now, if you're going to say somebody comes up along here and just makes up a religion, next year, hey, look, we got these documents, and we say that, Shabahaba rose from the dead. Okay, that's fine. I said prophecy. I said eyewitness accounts, said performing miracles, and did all this stuff because anybody can just make a claim, and if someone made a claim like that, how could it be verified? See, so only Christianity has the ancient documents and the eyewitness accounts that are related to that. That's it. The other ones don't, so they don't match.
I'm wondering why you're flexing these three specific criteria.
If I picked any other, you would say, well, why those three? Look, prophecy is a fingerprint of God.
Okay.
Period. Detailed prophecy. You can't explain that without God's existence.
Right, or at least a deity of some sort. You do have prophecies and other things.
Yeah, yeah. Show me one.
Well, you do have one in the, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but there's like some sort of Hindu text that does have prophecies in it. Not saying they're from
Okay.
your god, but
Did you show them to me?
I'd have to
Have you-
find the article.
have you
I
done
have
the
looked at
research?
it though.
Have you done the research?
Not on that particular religion. Maybe that's a bad idea. But how about, for instance, even if we look at like Norse, because I've looked at them like a lot.
The
And
Norse
they're-
religions, do they have detailed prophecies that are fulfilled in the documents that we can verify are ancient from different times?
Well, for instance, it does say that men will become more hedonistic and self-indulgent in that.
That's not
And that has happened.
that's nothing. If I were to give you a bunch of prophecies like that out of the Bible, like stuff like people are going to become meaner, they're going to learn more, they're going to do different things, you'd go, that's nothing.
But we
Look
already
what
do
you're
have things
doing.
like that. We got things that wars and rumors of wars already in there, and that's kind of vague. But people treat that like it's a really, really big thing.
Wars and rumors of wars, that's in the Bible?
Yeah.
Okay, and is that what I referenced?
No, that's not like you're referenced.
I said
just because something's
detailed
vague-
prophecies. I said detailed prophecies, like the crucifixion out of Psalm 22, the birthplace of the Messiah out of Malachi 5:2. And I need to do this. I keep talking about it for the past 2 years. Get the research together to show the detailed prophecy, the number of days that the Messiah would ride into the city of Jerusalem. From 170 some odd thousand days earlier was prophesied. To the day was accurate. The manner of crucifixion, the death, all this stuff. These are detailed prophecies, not generic. Hey, people are going to become mean in later times. That's not specific. That's general.
So it's the specificness of the prophecies that make them more legit.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you something. Can I read you something?
Sure.
Can I read something to you? All right. You may already know about this. Tell me what this is, okay? Be not far from me. Trouble is near. There is none to help. Many bulls have surrounded me. Strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. They open wide their mouth at me as a ravening and roaring lion. I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. My tongue cleaves to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs have surrounded me. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. They pierce my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. They look, they stare at me. They divide my garments among them. And for my clothing, they cast lots. What does that sound like?
Sounds like what happened to Jesus.
Yeah, that's Psalm 22, written 1000 BC, and 400 years before crucifixion was invented.
Yeah, prophecy. A little bit of imagery language in there used. No specific names, but yeah.
Oh, it's very interesting. Dogs is another name for Gentiles. That's why it says evildoers have surrounded me. You can count all those bones. It's just a phrase that they're not broken. Come on. This stuff is detailed. When I read this to people, they go, well, that's a crucifixion of Jesus. Yeah, that's right. 1000 BC. And they recognize it. You got that in those Hindus texts or those Norse texts like that? And that's just one of them. It's just one. Where was Jesus born? Bethlehem. Right? That's Micah 5:2. So let's say you're going to make a prophecy, the mathematics. Now, the funny thing about mathematics is, check this out. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 is not 5. Math relates to actuality. We could build a roller coaster on a computer by just using our fingers and keyboard and a mouse and build it with using math and physics, and then print up the plans. Somebody goes, builds it, and the roller coaster works because mathematics relates to reality. Math and physics relates to reality. That's what's going on. Now, get this. What are the odds of being born in any particular city 2,000 years ago in the entire planet? Well, let's just say 1 in how many cities there are. 5,000 cities all over the world at that time? Who knows? 1 in 5,000. What are the odds of being killed like this is described in Psalm 22, which I read? I don't know. 1 in 20,000, 1 in 1,000. Let's just pick up 1 in 1,000. That's 1 in 1,000 times 1 in 5,000. So now you got to. It's like you have to add the exponents. So now you're talking like 1 in 50,000 power. or 150,000 so far. That's just 2 prophecies. And what you do is you keep going through how old he was, what household he was from, be born of a virgin. I mean, how do you put the odds on that? And people have done the math on this, and they've discovered that the odds are more than the number of electrons in the universe. And so there comes a point in mathematics when the odds are 0. 10 to the 100th power. It's equivalent to 0. And I think the 0 boundary is something like 10 to the 30th or 40th or 50th or something like that. I don't know. It's been a long time. But when you get up to the hundreds and up there, forget it. It's just equivalent to 0. It's just not going to happen. I mean, the number of electrons or particles in the entire universe is only 10 to the 80th. That's in the entire universe, particles. And the odds of Jesus fulfilling prophecies exceeds that.
Yeah, so the statistical impossibility is 10 to the 48th power. And
that's what it is, 48th?
Yeah, and the calculation that at least I've seen by a couple people, it's up in the, depending how many prophecies they look at and which ones, because some could be self-fulfilling prophecies, so some people ignore those, but so you're going to get anything between 10 to the 125th power or as high as 10 to the 215th power is what the numbers I've seen, depending on which prophecies you end up looking at, and whether, some people will look at all of them, some look at just the ones that are not self-fulfilling.
Right. It's just, it just doesn't work. That it's just random. It does not work. And so Jesus,
I don't think it's random either.
That's right, man. This is why you should get on your knees and you should be saying, Lord, you're giving me breath. You're giving me heartbeats. I want to use my life for you.
Well, this ain't about me, dude. This is you do you and I do me, right? This is just figuring out exactly what you believe and why you believe it. Curiousness.
There comes a point when you make a decision with the knowledge you have. You need to think about this. Let me ask you something. Let's say you and I are sitting here talking at a park, and we see a woman a couple 100 feet away get mugged, and we're running over there to save her. But the bad guy gets away. All right, is that an injustice?
Bad guy gets away? Yeah, I'd say that's an injustice compared to our justice system.
Okay, so a year later, you and I are in South America, and at a park talking about stuff, and the same thing happens. We try and rescue the lady, but the bad guy gets away. Is that also an injustice? A completely different culture and time and location. Is it is it wrong? Is it an injustice?
I'd say it is.
All right, but you see, the thing is, you agree and I agree that it's an injustice, and in a different place and different time, you recognize that something is wrong. But an act is nothing. See, I got this back scratcher. My mom had this. She's had it for like 40 years or whatever. So I got it. So if I were to just throw this across the room, is that right or wrong? It's a non sequitur. Is it morally right or morally wrong? It doesn't make any sense. See, actions in themselves don't really have a value.
Yeah, not really. It depends on the value we assign to them.
That's right. The intention of the heart. So if I were to slap you, say we're talking and I slap you, is it right or wrong? Well, it depends. If there was a really poisonous bug on you and I was trying to save you, then it's a good thing. If I just didn't like your haircut, then it's not a good thing. But the point is that intention of the heart. But you're appealing to a universal truth of an injustice that you recognize and I recognize. But universal injustices require universal mind. You recognize a universal mind. You recognize it in the fact that you recognize a universal injustice. So you recognize that there is an absolute system and an absolute right and wrong, because it is wrong for a person to do that, to mug a woman and get away. And the mugging is wrong, the theft is wrong, and getting away is wrong. These are injustices. Now, only in the Christian worldview will they all be taken care of, and we can propose that we have an ultimately just system. God will take care of the unbelievers in that sense. And he'll
Perhaps, but the only reason I'm going after this person or whatnot that did the mugging in the first place is because that particular objective morality, whatever you want to call it, happens to be something that lines up with my personal values too. I wouldn't want to have that happen to me.
Oh, well, then you're arrogant. You're incredibly arrogant, because that just happens to line up with what I like. See how arrogant that is? Because you're saying, look, I'm going to judge a universal moral truth based on what I feel, what I want, what I like. It happens to line up with what
I
I
didn't say
am.
it's going to judge. I just said that's the reason why I'd act
Yes,
on
you
it.
did. You said it was an injustice, and you and I are both running. You had no problem with that. You're acting on it. So you are
Acting on it
actually,
because it lines up with my values. Just
So
my
you're
values
the
do not
one.
necessarily line up with the objective truth or
So,
whatnot.
so you're the one who's the arrogant one. You're the one saying it is something that is wrong because it lines up with what I want. And when someone has an attitude like that, they're not going to find God. He's going to hide themselves because the Bible says in James 4, I believe it is, he hides himself from the proud. You are actually judging the moral system, saying it lines up with what I want, so therefore I agree that it's this or that. Well, no disrespect meant, but who the heck are you? Who are you to
Well, of
decide what
course,
is true, what is false,
of
what is
course,
morally
not
right,
like
what's
I ain't
morally
heard this
wrong?
before. I understand.
Right.
Yeah, it's
And the
a
thing is that,
theological thing.
I gave you this little analogy of you and I sitting and a year apart. We both recognize something outside of ourselves is where we recognize the justice. You are contradicting yourself, saying, well, in one case it satisfies what I want, but you also recognize that it's a universal truth statement, or universal truth, that it's the wrong thing to do, regardless of place and time.
Right, but
And
then there's
so,
other things that line up with the objective morality that I might not necessarily agree with in theory either.
well, then who are you to decide? You see, this is the problem. You are not the judge. You don't have any transcendental sense, but yet you appeal to a transcendental sense in the issue of universal justice and injustice.
Because
You're a
everyone,
walking contradiction.
not
You
because everyone
want
has their own value system. I'm pretty sure there's other people that know that something is
my value system is that
wrong or
your value.
against the laws.
My value system is that your value system is wrong. So, am I right?
Right. Well, you're right in the sense that you might be appealing to the objective standard, but
Oh, so an objective
let's just
standard
say
is
we didn't
better?
know what was right and what was.
Is an objective standard better than a subjective one?
Well, in the sense that it helps you follow the right way, the
Well,
right
why is that the
whatever.
right one? In the sense that it does this. Now, here you go with your subjective preference again, trying to impose it over an objective standard of morality. See, your problem
Right?
is
But
your
that's
problem
because I have
is
a different value system.
your problem is your arrogance. And when I say that, I'm not trying to be name calling. What I mean is you don't realize how utterly foolishly arrogant you really are. And the reason I recognize it is because that's what I used to do. See, I will decide. Now, let me put words in your mouth, on purpose here
Yeah,
to
you don't want
exaggerate.
to accidentally do that though.
Well, I'm going to illustrate. I am the one who will decide what is morally right and wrong. And if an action agrees with my personal preference, then I'll do something about it. That means that you are the one who now is the arbiter of truth. What if someone who has the same value system as you, the same idea, whatever I decide, disagrees with you and wants to rob you? Who's right? Who's wrong? Nobody is in your sense. And when you have that kind of a system as that you and someone else might use, and you get conflicting conclusions, the system is incorrect because it contradicts itself. It leads to contradiction and anarchy. Your system, it doesn't work. The only way to have any absolute value is to appeal to something outside of yourselves. This is a universal requirement of truth and absolute morality, which means you recognize God exists, and he happens to have revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ in detail-filled prophecies, which is why Christianity is better than any other religion, because it's the only one that has Jesus.
Well, who happens to say that the value system in mind would work for everybody? That's the whole point of it being, of us being
Yours is
individuals.
subjective. Yours is subjective. A
Right.
subjective moral system means whoever has the bigger gun wins.
But I'm not saying that that's the morals. I'm just saying that's what I would do. Because,
Yeah.
you can still recognize something is wrong and go against it.
Okay, well, I've already gone through this with you. I've shown you that you're self-refuting. I've shown you that you're not consistent. I've shown you that you got a problem of moral judgment, and you are standing on thin ice, and the only thing that's keeping you alive is the sheer mercy of God himself, who is letting you have this foolishness, letting you have your self-contradiction, letting you have your subjective moral stance, letting you have this in the foolishness of your worldview. And I'm not trying to be name calling. I'm trying to show you theologically, God is allowing you to do this. He's allowing you to. but he's also judging your heart, because the further along you get like this, the more hard you will become to the actual truth, and you'll reject Christ. And without Christ, according to what Jesus says, without him, you're on your way to hell. You need to repent. You need to come to Jesus Christ. You need to give yourself to him and trust the one who rose from the dead, who fulfilled details prophecy, who raised others from the dead with eyewitness accounts recording this, and who says he is God in flesh and that he is the only way. You're going to have to face him on day of judgment. So
Again, it ain't,
okay.
Again, it ain't about, I already told you about the whole thing that, yeah, I've understood what you guys have said in that before, but I feel like there's more to it than just specifically what we find in just one collection of like 66 books specifically. Doesn't mean that nothing what you've said it ain't true or nothing. It just means that there is an incomplete picture and maybe a misunderstanding.
Nope. Let me shift. I'm going to address something that somebody said in the text here, because he says, Harry Alexander, pretty sure the thing that's keeping him alive is his healthy body, not your specific interpretation of God, Matt. God is the one who has given him the healthy body.
Thanks, Harry.
God is the one who has given him the ability to think and to breathe, and nothing but God's mercy keeps him alive, Harry. God has given him those things. See, God has given everybody gifts. Everybody has something that God has given them, and you are obligated to use them for the glory of the giver. And if you use them, even your own breath, even your own heartbeat, in order to rebel against him, you're going to pay the price for that. Life is an incredibly precious thing. It is not something that's randomly evolved, and you get life out of non-life. You get organization out of non-organization, intelligence out of non-intelligence. These kind of mythical fabrications of fairy tales is what is being promoted as truth and logic and wisdom in the secular world, but it's just not the case. Life comes from God, who is the eternal being. Our life, every life that we possess, is a great privilege. And every second that we have it here is a privilege from God, who can end our lives at any time, should he desire. This is why I want to tell people, your lives are precious gifts from God. Use them for glorifying him, not yourselves. And don't be sitting on the throne trying to be the judge of morality and truth. Let him do that, and then you'll find out what truth really is.
Yeah, but you can't. The problem is that as far as the whole morality thing, whatnot, if you yourself have like a specific nature that leads you to kind of behave a certain way in the first place, like a lot of humans, you know, by their very nature, they'd end up trying to be more self-serving anyhow. I mean, you can't really expect them to act too much otherwise.
You're still responsible.
Right. I understand I'm still responsible, but
You're responsible.
so what? I'm still going to be the way I am, right? It's part of my Sylvan nature, part of my human nature.
You are still responsible, and use what giftings you have wisely, and you have that ability to be wise and to seek truth. So start doing that, because you're not. You're seeking that which will satisfy you.
I thought according to total depravity, you can't do that.
No, I didn't say that. No,
right.
no one can do any good work before God. But it does not mean that there aren't people who have certain aspects of the image of God and certain qualities within them. What I'm telling you is that you need to use whatever God has given you for the glory of God, because that's the right thing to do. I'm obligated to tell you what's right.
Right.
And whether or not God grants you the mercy to complete what you ought to do, that's between God and you. But for me right now, I'm telling you what you need to do. What you need to do is read that word, read the words of Christ. You need to seek Jesus. You need to repent of your sins. You need to do this. And if you don't, when you die, you're going to go to hell. And I don't want you to go there. I want you to go to heaven. I don't know how all this election predestination works. I know that's what God says in the Bible. I know that. It's not my business to know how it works, but I do know that when the gospel's preached and prayer goes up to the heavenly realm, that people get saved more and more. I'm just simply preaching the truth to you. May God in his great mercy grant you the same repentance that he's given me, and grant you the same faith he's given me. But your responsibility is still there.
Well, it's going to depend on what the fates have decided for your boy, but I do appreciate your concern as a
Okay.
fellow person of this here Middle Earth here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we move along then? Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for answering the question. Peace.
Thanks, Drill.
Okay.
And
right.
I'm going to put Jordan in next. And one of the things, Matt, you said on YouTube, that just getting back to that earlier thing before we get to Jordan, there there are certain, you mentioned hand gestures in different countries that could be seen as foul language. I remember a pastor friend of mine who went down to South America did a hand gesture that in America refers to a hitchhiking. And he
Really?
said, take a hike. They didn't understand what take a hike meant. And the translator was trying to figure out what take a hike means. But the whole crowd was aghast. Why? Because in that country, when you take your thumb and stick it out the way we would say for hitchhiking, that's a way to call a prostitute. Well, he didn't know that. And the translator wasn't paying attention to what his hand gesture was because he was trying to figure out what take a hike means. And then when he saw what the guy was doing, it was one of these things where he quickly was trying to, figure out what did the preacher mean by what he said, and then tried to translate that. But
yeah. I had someone from Brazil tell me that when you do this, hey, okay, man, that's the same thing as giving someone the finger.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I heard.
Yeah. So Jordan has some questions for you tonight. He's up next.
All right,
so
Jordan.
Go ahead, Jordan.
How y'all doing this week?
By God's grace, doing well.
Good. My question is about Acts 17:31.
Okay.
Yeah. Could you give me your maybe your translation of that?
Well, I would say that he has fixed a day in which he's going to judge everybody through Jesus.
Okay. I was interested in your translation of the last
NASB. NASB. Because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man whom he has appointed, having furnished proof to all men by raising him from the dead.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about. Is that's basically what all the translations I'm finding are saying something very similar to that about furnishing proof. But the reason that I was asking about this is I was reading through Acts, and the natural reading of this to me, it just seems like it says because he appointed a day in which he's about to judge the world in righteousness by a man whom he appointed, offering faith to all people, raising him from the dead.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But y'all don't believe that faith is offered to all people.
Well, how does the word faith mean there? He's offering faith, offering the opportunity for everybody to believe, offering this. I don't have any problem with that at all. He's offering it to everybody, this idea of believing in Christ.
Oh, okay. It seemed like if anasthesis is an adverbial participle of means pointing back to the paraskon, then it would seem that this would be a proof text against limited atonement.
The proof or the faith offered that for all men would not affect limited atonement, because limited atonement has a legal aspect. The idea of proof is a moral one, in the sense that everybody should believe in the resurrection of Christ and should believe in the truth of who Christ is. This is what they should do. He's furnished a proof for this. As the Greek says, has appointed, having furnished faith to all. And the word, when I checking out the meaning of the words, is to pistis here, has different meanings in different contexts. To win over, persuade, subjectively meaning firm persuasion, conviction, belief in the truth, veracity, reality, or faithfulness, which is, though rare, it says, objectively meaning that which is believed, doctrine, the received articles of faith. And so it has a wide variety of meanings. And so in this context, I would say that I like the NASB translation. Let's see what the ESV says. given assurance to all by raising him from the dead, showing to everybody, this is the reason why you need to believe. Christ has written, that's the proof, which I think is what he's really trying to get at there. Giving assurance to all men. What is that one? Wow, that's weird. The Newberry Interlinear. Newberry, I didn't even know I had that. And that says, given to all proof. It says proof.
Yeah, I guess that would
Proof.
probably.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I think my internet's lagging or something.
I think maybe on Matt's side, I think it looks like he may be frozen.
Really?
Matt, I think internet on your side, it might be, maybe shut your camera down for a bit and see if that helps.
Okay.
I know it helps. All right. Now we can hear you.
You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Maybe I'll just do that.
And you
See
look
if
better.
anybody's- Yeah, a lot better. See if anybody else is using the internet right now. Nope, nobody is. Interesting. Okay, no biggie. That's what it is. In fact, I'm going to get some water because I'm thirsty. Keep talking.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that would probably be the simplest form of my question is, like, where would be some other places where the where the meaning of pistis would mean something like proof.
Oh, I'd have to look around us to see what different opportunities, different texts say. I mean, I don't know. Top of my head, I don't know.
So I looked it up in BDAG, and BDAG has quite an entry of pistis,
Okay.
pretty lengthy, and I went through all of it, and I finally found. It's actually in it's listed under number 1, section C, as a proof or a pledge. I said, "Oh, here it is. It's going to give me some examples," and basically the only one it gives is Acts 17:31, which is what's in question. It just seemed like an odd way to translate it in that context as a proof.
How would you translate it?
Well, it just seems it just seems like to me it's just talking about faith, that he's offering faith to all. You could translate it by raising him from the dead, or whether that's a means or a participle of means or manner, it doesn't really matter. But it just, like, if I ask myself, how would I say offering faith to all people, how would I say that using the participial form? This is exactly how I would write it.
Can I offer
How
something on
how would you say that using the participle? How would you say offering faith to all people?
Can I offer you something on that?
Sure, Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a Greek professor one time that explained to me the biblical faith as is encapsulated in the word pistis, what has to be understood in a fashion he called the ABC of the word pistis, an action based upon a belief and sustained by confidence, and that's the kind of faith that the Lord will provide for believers. But you leave one element out, and you have disqualified any meaningful meaning to the word in its full intent as it pertains to faith in Christ. So to actually act on your belief, that is to run for the shelter of the rock that you know will shelter you in a storm, is what you must do in order to obtain that shelter. So your action based on a belief, and you have the confidence going into it that you will be sheltered from the storm under that rock, would complete the meaning, the full meaning in the Greek of that word pistis, as it's used in regards to faith in that context. I hope that helps.
Maybe a little.
Well, that was the understanding of the usage of it at the time by the author and to the audience that he was trying to help understand what it meant. So I can only go with that and say that in that context, it makes good sense to me. And I've tried to pick it apart in other fashions, and it doesn't seem to be picked apart from that view. That's all. But thanks.
Okay, Matt, you there? See, now we
Yeah.
can't. Okay.
Yeah. We had a little side thing going on here. My wife found, I went and got some water. My wife found something on Facebook, and we're trying to figure it out. So it's like, what? Has to do with James White, has to do with Tim Hurd.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, someone sent me something.
Okay, so you weren't sure what's going on. Okay, whatever. If you know what that is, great. It doesn't make sense. Okay, who's next? Next question, comment?
Next, Jordan, is that all that you had?
Yeah, that's the only question I have at the moment.
I'm sure you'll have another soon. The next up, let's see, Duncan left. Okay, so someone Integrity O would be next. Let me turn his volume up so he could be heard. So I think he's unmuted. Are you there? Okay, we're not hearing from Integrity O. Oh, there we go. Sounds like he's getting a microphone on. Are you there? Or are you chewing? Okay. Well, we're gonna turn his volume back down. If you have a question, you could ask that in the chat. Let us know that you're ready. So, not sure if anyone else has questions here that who are here. Jordan said, "Sound like a rat had his mic."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was hoping that Duncan would stay in. He was pretty active there on challenging some of the things you were saying, Matt, on the in YouTube. So
What was I saying? Well, I wasn't paying attention. We had a little sidetrack thing that was going on. So that was Duncan.
Yeah, but I will. I'm going to add Greg in here. He just came in. I think he looks familiar. I think we've spoken to him before, but I don't remember much. But Greg, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, well, it's more. I just want to point something out. Although I missed the exchange on morality between Trill and Matt, I'm aware that Matt has a habit of arguing towards transcendentals. The problem with that is that the atheist is not. The atheist can appeal to transcendentals as well. They could appeal to a sort of Platonism to justify a sort of a very similar objective morality using transcendentals, and they can do the same with logic as well.
Yeah, of course they can. They can appeal to it. Can they do it logically? And can they make a coherent appeal? Because think about it, transcendentals are abstractions, right?
Well, atheism doesn't say there are no abstract, in the sense, abstract objects.
A transcendental is an abstraction.
So are Platonic forms.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's an abstraction because even in Platonism, you have the perfect chair. The chair is a concept. Chairness is a concept, and there are varying forms of chairness that are actualized that we recognize. We recognize it in our minds. So transcendentals are concepts. Now the atheist can appeal to a transcendental system if they want, and the laws of logic as being transcendental at the same time. But they shoot themselves in the foot because they're appealing to universal abstractions. Abstractions require minds.
Well, so not in a Platonic system. They don't. You just.
Well, it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter. He can Plato, just because Plato says that there are these transcendent abstractions out there that don't require a mind, if he's going to imply that, doesn't make it true.
Well, I agree. I'm just saying that the atheists can appeal to these
I got you.
abstractions
and they
that don't appeal to minds.
I say, show me an abstraction without a mind.
Well, if they were Platonists, they would believe such, and they should be able to do that.
Okay, so how does an abstraction exist without a mind?
Well, I'm not a Platonist, so I can't defend
I
Platonism.
got
I'm
you.
just saying
I
that
got you.
atheists can't appeal to Platonism.
I got you. I got you. They can appeal to it. I've got you. You said it different ways. I'm responding with what I've said to them. How do you have an abstraction without a mind?
Well, I don't think you can, but if you're going to say that
There you
abstractions
go.
are ontologically dependent on minds, then that is the criterion of that would make it subjective.
No, it doesn't.
Well, yes, it does. Objective is ontologically independent of minds.
No,
A feature of
no,
reality. Yes, that's
no.
what it means.
We recognize the transcendental truth. We don't cause it. It's not dependent upon us. Otherwise, it's not transcendental. That's
Well,
not
something being
subjective.
subjective is not limited to just being dependent on human minds. It's all minds in general, including the mind of God.
No,
So
it
if
can't be that either. It can't be that transcendentals are dependent upon all human minds, because then there's
well, I
that
agree
means.
that
You let me finish. They can't be dependent upon human minds, because if the human minds go away, the transcendentals go away. And if one mind thinks that 2 + 2 is 4, another one thinks 2 + 2 is 5, well, then which mind is true? It does not work that way.
I agree.
I know there are
Transcendentals
objections.
are.
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I would agree that transcendentals aren't subjective. They would be objective. I mean, they would be features of reality, which is why appealing to transcendentals as abstractions of the mind of God doesn't work, because that just means it's subjective in the context of God's mind.
No problem. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with
It
that?
just means that. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying
Well, wait a
that it
minute.
entails more.
No, you said, well, it's subjective to God's mind, therefore it's not objective. The objectivity we're talking about is in relation to ourselves, and I say transcendentals require a universal mind. That's God. It's not subjective to Him as though it's not consistent, because God's mind is absolute and true. He's immutable.
Well, objective
So
means
therefore, I know what it means. Dependent outside, but but we're talking in relationship to ourselves, and the nature of the transcendentals and abstractions, even in Platonism. Okay, you need to speak more specifically about what it is you intend to say then.
Well, objective means that it's ontologically independent of minds. That includes whether it's God's mind or some alien's mind or human minds.
Okay. Okay. Are you a Christian?
No.
What are you?
I'm an agnostic.
Okay.
In specific relation to God.
Okay, so you don't know if God exists.
Sure. Yes, I would agree to that.
Okay. And so what you're trying to do is find a way to explain transcendentals without God.
Well, that's fine. I mean, if you want to say that,
well,
that's what Platonism does. It allows for a. I don't believe that objective morality exists to begin with. I'm just saying that something can be transcendental and not ontologically dependent on God. You can have a Platonic good, which is a feature of reality that's not subjective.
So you don't believe absolute morals exist?
No, I believe absolute morals exist. I don't believe in objective morality.
Okay. I think you're really confused on how you're using your terms. You keep switching them.
No. Absolute is a phrase in normative ethics. Objective is a term within meta ethics. There's two distinct.
Okay, which definition you want to go by? Which definition you want to go by?
Well, as a more anti-realist, I don't believe in objective morality.
You don't believe in objective morality. So there's no moral standard that's outside of ourselves?
Well, I don't believe that there's any, moral standard that is based on property within reality.
Based on a property within reality? What does that mean?
Well, that's what I mean. If that's what moral realism is you have
the property of roundness, of hardness.
Well, those would be certain Platonic positions.
Okay,
but it doesn't necessarily have to be Platonic. It could just be some.
Hold on.
Property.
Okay, hold on. You have read obviously some of this stuff, and you're throwing a bunch of stuff out rapid, and you're not stopping to analyze what it is you're actually saying. Okay, you need to stop just throwing so many things out, because I don't even believe you understand what you're saying.
Well, you have meta ethics, which deals with how something is right or wrong. You have normative ethics, which is what should be considered right or wrong, and then you have descriptive ethics, which is what people believe is right and wrong.
Okay. So do you believe that statements are either true or false?
If you're saying
Are statements
there are
true or
statements
false?
like you can have the statement the following statement is false, the previous statement is true.
Yeah, that's self-refuting, so it's not a proper subject of the law of excluded middle. If something's self-refuted, it can't be true. And if it's not true, it can't be true or false. It just simply is not true. So, do you believe statements are either true or false?
Yes.
Okay. So, is this statement true or is it false? It is always wrong for everyone to torture babies to death merely for their personal pleasure.
Well, it depends on your value system. If you believe that it is always wrong without context.
I said,
absoluteness
I said, is the statement true or false? You said statements are either true or false. So tell me, is the statement true or is it false?
It's not tooth apt.
It's what?
It's not tooth apt.
Okay, so you contradict yourself. You said statements are either true or not true, or true or false, and now you contradict yourself. Okay, so we can't have a conversation if you're going to just sit there and switch definitions, switch topics, and contradict yourself.
Well, I'm not switching definitions.
You're contradicting yourself. I'm just showing you. You're all over the map here. Look, you said statements either true or false. I gave you a statement, and you said it doesn't apply.
It's not tooth apt.
It's not.
So only tooth apt statements would be either true or false.
So is it true that I'm talking to you? Is it true? That is a true statement. I'm talking to you. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Is it true that babies exist?
Well, I mean, how far
exist.
You want to go down the skeptical?
Babies exist. Babies exist. Is that true, or is it not the case that it's true?
If you want to go down if you want to be very strict about it, I would be skeptical of that.
Okay, we're done talking.
But I mean,
we're done talking.
I don't see how we're done.
We're done.
You don't seem to understand.
Move along. Just cut him off.
Understand anything about
Cut him off. Cut him off. I'm not talking.
Understand objective morality.
Okay. There's no sense in having a conversation with someone who just can't even recognize the statement that babies exist. Well, yeah, blah blah blah. Give me a break. We're never going to get anywhere. He's not having a normal conversation. We're just going to move on to something else. It's ridiculous.
Well, he's not interested in a conversation.
He's just interested in arguing in infinitum. That's all.
I just know.
Yeah. I just trapped him. Find out. That I already decided. As soon as I said, how's he going to answer this one? Babies exist. If he gives me a hard time, we're just moving on. Go ahead.
John, you had something you want to say?
I was going to say, he doesn't want to have a conversation.
No.
You asked him a very simple question. Do babies exist? And he has to dodge that?
Well, I mean, if you want to be very strict, we would have to...
No, it's a simple question. It's like 2 plus 2. It's 2 plus 2, okay? It's simple. It's simple. It's a simple freaking question. Come on. Okay, you're a freaking idiot.
It's not as simple as you want to make it.
John's a little fired
up. I'm gonna lose it. I'm just gonna lose it. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of these games. There's no such thing as babies.
We have to first demonstrate. Then we have
I kid you not, man. You guys will do anything you can to deny God. You will do anything. You will do anything to deny God. You guys are idiots.
I don't deny God.
So, tell us what you really think, John.
He's saying it.
Telling you, man.
I'm very much aware of Matt's moral trickery.
All right.
So there's no babies.
John, you must have scared off the next. Oh no, he's back. Bob came back. All right. So we're gonna try to add Bob in. I thought maybe you scared him off there, but
nah.
You ran. All right, Bob. Welcome. Are you new to these hangouts?
How's it going?
It's going.
You new to these hangouts? I don't recognize the name.
Are you there, Bob? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
All right. What's your question?
I was just hearing your nice conversation about babies existing or not.
Golly. Yeah, at the point sometimes you just got to say, we're done talking.
Well, babies exist. Sky gods and devils, I'm not too sure about that, but babies exist.
It's like, come on. If you can't even answer that one, we're not talking.
So Bob, what's your question that you have for Matt?
Yeah, I was just emailing him the other day. So, do you have any proof that your God exists or not?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the question. Do I have any proof? What?
Do you have any proof that your God exists?
Yeah, the resurrection of Jesus is the proof.
That's not proof.
Yeah, it is.
No, do you have empirical evidence?
Okay, here we go.
Yep, here we go.
Yeah. Okay, what's empirical evidence?
Do you have evidence that's been performed through the scientific method? Anything peer reviewed by the scientists? Anybody with a PhD? Anything like that?
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is your statement, your requirement, is that the right approach?
My statement is that it corresponds with the accurate description of reality.
Okay. So do you know that the scientific method is a philosophy?
Of course, science comes from philosophy. It does have.
Do you know that it is a philosophy? Did you know?
Method?
Yes.
It may be that, but it's also the only accurate approach we have to.
How do you know it's
the nature of reality?
How do you know it's the only accurate way?
It's the way that the entire scientific community has agreed upon as a way to answering the questions of the nature of reality.
So that's called the argumentum ad populum. So the majority has agreed, so therefore it's true.
Okay, but my question was, what evidence do you have for your God?
I told you. You said you wanted empirical evidence, and so
resurrection is not evidence. That's just something that's written
But
in the
wait,
book.
Bob. Before we can get there, you first have to show that your statement has been peer reviewed.
No, I have a simple question. I just want to know what evidence you have that your God exists. You have to provide it.
The resurrection of Jesus.
Okay, well, prove do you have a scientific theorem?
Okay, then you're asking a different question. Which question do you want to ask? Because you're changing it up.
What scientific evidence do you have that your God exists?
Don't make me explode on this guy too.
That's not
Okay, hold on. Okay, slow down, please. Slow down. Okay, what's your name? What's your name?
You already said it, Bob.
Bob.
Bob. Okay, Bob. So, Bob, what you are demanding is your personal preference. I want
evidence.
Can I? Okay, you want evidence for God.
Yes.
And
don't give me the resurrection. That's bullshit.
Can you please let me finish? It's always nice.
Question. Just answer the question.
If you're going to use foul language, I will remove you immediately.
Okay.
All right. If you're going to be rude and cut him off when he's answered your question several times, that's not
an answer to the question.
Bob,
the resurrection is not an answer.
Bob, the fact that you don't like the answer doesn't mean it's not an answer.
That's not the answer. The fact I don't like it doesn't matter.
Bob,
that's not the answer.
Bob.
Yes, sir.
Bob.
Come on.
You asked the question. You asked him, "What's the evidence?" He gave you the evidence.
That's not evidence, though.
Bob. Okay. You asked him a question.
Yes.
He gave you an answer.
That's not good, but that's not an accurate answer.
Well, Bob,
let me get in
Bob,
here.
Is there any answer you would accept?
Yes.
Yeah. What?
If you could point to something observable, some type of mathematical formula, something.
Okay, observable by like 500 people, say?
Observable by, sure, why not?
Okay, that's the resurrection.
How do you observe something that happened over 2,000 years ago?
John, hold on.
Guys, too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah. Let me ask Bob a question here.
Yes.
Bob, was George Washington our first president? Yes or no?
Yes, he was. And because of the fact that you're going to say
prove it by the scientific
because we're alive today, that no one was there to observe it, that now you're being nonsensical.
No, what I'm doing is
we need to move on past this guy. We're not going to get anywhere with him.
Yeah, I know, but I want to.
We don't get anywhere with you Christian apologists either.
Hold on, man. So here's the thing, Bob. What I'm doing is I'm giving you the right method of study for this topic at hand. You don't use science. Bob,
let's turn it on him. He's an atheist.
Try to listen.
I'm a proud atheist too.
So
you got the scientific proof that atheism is true?
Atheism is a lack of belief.
It's a lack of belief?
It's a lack of belief.
Then the back scratcher in my hand is an atheist. It lacks belief.
Then in that case, we'll give it stupid. You're an atheist too because you don't believe in Zeus or Allah.
Okay. We need to move on because we're not going to get anywhere with someone who cannot think critically and is full of vitriol and anger.
Yes, Christian apologist.
No, sir, Bob, we try to talk with you, and you constantly interrupt, and we try
for your God existing.
And see, you keep interrupting, Bob.
Show me the evidence for your God.
Bob, I'm gonna turn him down for a bit, and then we'll turn him up.
Yeah,
this will be helpful. So, Bob, I'm going to ask you the question. I'll turn your volume back up. Okay. And here's going to be the question I want you to answer. Ready?
Go ahead.
I want you to tell me how many feet 8 pounds of feathers weigh.
How many feet? 8 pounds? I don't know.
Yeah, it's because the wrong measurement. You don't measure weight in feet, do you?
Okay, that's fine. So what's your point?
Okay, so the point is you don't measure history by science.
So you don't measure God by scientific realm either?
Bob, try listening, okay? So
Bob,
I asked you
put
about
away
George
your anger,
Washington.
Yeah, I'm angry.
I asked you about George Washington for a reason.
Yeah, you asked me about George Washington because you're trying to say that because we weren't there alive at his time that we can't prove he existed, which is a stupid thing to say.
No.
Yes, it is very stupid to say. Because now you're denouncing.
Okay,
you're denying history.
No,
brother.
Bob, this is classic. So Bob,
it is classic.
You want proof for something. We give you history because history.
You said the resurrection, which is not fact.
Is history.
Not
That's
evidence.
history.
It's the Bible is not history, my friend.
Okay.
We can't talk to this guy. The Bible's not history. No matter what we say,
history, my friend.
No matter what we say, he's just going to refuse it. It doesn't make any difference.
But
it doesn't matter.
See, the thing is where this is great. This is great because this is what so many people do, and people like Bob can't see it.
And people like you can't see things either.
See, Bob, the reason you can't allow anyone to finish the sentence is because of the fact that you can't defend your own claims. Matt just did that with you, and you couldn't defend it.
You can't defend me either. Prove to me that your God exists. Just prove it.
We can't prove it to you because what you would accept for because Bob, because what you would accept, Bob. Because you won't accept anything we have. You have a very narrow view. I was trying to show you that your narrow view was inaccurate. It was the wrong one. It's just subjective preferences on your part. And you hate God. You're not interested in God. You want to justify your own atheism. And you don't argue from a lack of position, Bob. You argue from what you believe in, not what you lack belief in. You deny God. You openly deny him, and you hate him. You want your own sovereignty. Now, the proof that God exists is the very fact that your hatred of him constitutes evidence that the scriptures are true, that judgment is upon your heart and your mind for your hatred of him and your wanting to be in his place, just as the scriptures teach. Your very denial and your hatred are evidence for God's existence because the judgment by him upon your heart is very evident.
I hate Christians. I hate
no, Matt, here's the thing, and maybe we'll turn them up again after, but here's the thing that we end up seeing with this, and we see this with countless people, okay? He wants you to use science to explain something that isn't determined by science. It's determined by history. It's determined by philosophy. He's using the wrong measurement. But then when you turn it on him and put it in the same caliber, asking George Washington, he's like, well, that's history. Well, that's exactly right. And he can't use his own standard for anything else. So he wants a standard for you to prove God exists, but he wants it only by a science standard. Now, here's the reason, Bob, and I want you to listen. Here's why you can't use science to prove God.
Okay, that's
very simple. Okay. Science is the proper measurement of the natural world. Science is the study of the material world. God is not material. You
have no evidence for this.
You can't use science to prove God exists any more than you can use science to prove that you love your wife
or that a soul exists.
Evidence for what you're saying.
Correct.
Exactly.
Or my thoughts exist. Right. He's not interested in truth. He's interested in denial. You're not interested
in truth either. You're just peddling this notion of Jesus and God.
Let's just move on, guys. Seriously,
Bob,
seriously.
We're almost done. You know,
okay,
but it is the thing. So, Bob, can you prove scientifically that you love your wife if you're married?
No.
No,
because just like you can't prove scientifically that God exists.
Correct.
We don't use science for God.
Logical fallacy, Bob. You're using
not
the
outside
wrong
of space and time, my friends. I'm sorry. That's just your little made-up sky god.
Whatever, dude. Whatever. Let's move along, guys. I'm going to bow out because I don't want to waste my time with someone who's full of hatred, who cannot reason properly, who makes unreasonable demands. You know, there's just no sense in going on. If he were polite in our conversation, we could work through things, but we can't because he's interrupting constantly and he's full of hatred. So why bother?
And this is the thing for folks who watch, all right? This is the problem when someone cannot engage and can't deal honestly with what people say, it reveals that they can't defend their own position. And Matt, you tried to do that with him. You turned it on him to say, okay, let's take your same position and support it with his atheism. He couldn't do it. What did he do? He tries to say, oh, it's a non-belief, as if that's his cop out, because he can't defend his own position. This is what we see with atheists all the time, that it's a non-belief, but it isn't a non-belief. You can prove negatives all day long.
No, you can't.
I can easily prove the statement, there's no tea in China, just by producing tea in China. You can prove a negative. It's easy to do.
I can't prove unicorns don't exist.
The thing is he doesn't have a negative thing. It's not a lack of belief that he's got. It's, as you're hearing, he doesn't want to even accept the right measurement to define these things. Okay, you don't use the study of the material world to study something that's not material.
Now
you can't prove it. That's true. It doesn't mean God doesn't exist, Bob. It means that you have a fallacy. You're using the wrong measurement. It is like trying to measure the weight of something in feet. It's a ridiculous statement. And that's why both Matt and I tried to talk to you, but you wouldn't hear it. And I know that you'll probably run off and claim, in victory for having gotten Matt upset. But the reality is Matt tried to patiently talk to you. You were rude, inconsiderate, and not logical in the basic things. All right. You asked a question and you got an answer. You didn't like the answer.
He gave me a non-answer. That's why
Matt gave you an answer. So to claim he didn't answer it, he did.
He gave me a non-answer.
You just don't like it because you wanted to use the wrong measurement.
He gave me a non-answer.
So with that, we'll end with Cody. Cody came in just at the end. So Cody, if I'm thinking you came in with a question, so you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Hey, yeah, no, I wasn't planning on it, but I do have one actually.
Sure.
Matt, if you want, could you give me just a quick synopsis of somebody that holds to modalism, what the implications are of that, which would make them outside of the camp of Christ?
Well, for one thing, what it's doing is denying the true nature of God in the Trinitarian sense. But they could be ignorant and still be saved within that realm because we're not saved by doctrine. So we could ferret out more. But the real issue becomes critical at the incarnation. In modalism, how do you have a true incarnation of the person of God in the form of Christ, who is then emptied himself, Philippians 2:5-8, and made under the law, Galatians 4:4. How do you have someone like that in that true state, that true sense? And you don't in modalism. So in Luke 22:42, when Jesus is praying to God the Father, when I ask modalists of varying degrees, I'll say, who was he praying to? Well, he's praying to himself. Okay, wait a minute. How's that work? He's right there. He's just praying to himself? Well, yeah. Okay, well, what do you mean he's praying to himself? He's actually saying to himself these things. But he says, our Father who is in heaven, right? That's who he's praying to in other prayers and stuff. But he's really praying to himself who's not in heaven. He's right here on the earth. And you can see how this starts to unravel. And so then they start saying, well, the Spirit's praying to the soul, or the human body will is praying to the divine in heaven. Well, wait a minute. If that's the case, you're teaching Nestorianism. And furthermore, you're teaching that there's no true incarnation, which invalidates the atonement, et cetera, et cetera. You see, that's the main area that is problematic. Make sense?
But why would people want to hold to those things?
Because
to that view. I mean, like, why would anyone be so dogmatic about that when you see so many of those type of contradictions? Jesus is obviously not the Father.
There is a psychological phenomenon called snapping, as well as a psychological or a spiritual phenomenon where God gives people over to things. And so what I've discovered, and you probably are already aware of this, if you have a neighborhood, a bunch of new people move into this neighborhood, and it just so happens, as the cosmic dice are rolled, that each person in this neighborhood, there's 100 people, are open to the things of the Lord. They're curious. They kind of moved there, and that's just what happened. So Mormons go in first, and they sign up. Or What if Jehovah's Witnesses went in first? They'll sign up, and they're going to believe, in a sense, the first group that gives them halfway decent answers. If the Christians go in there, hopefully they'll believe the truth about Christianity, the halfway decent answers. And so once they're in a group, it's difficult to get them out. People have a tendency to believe in things that's first introduced to them that semi makes sense, and then they commit to it psychologically, and it's called snapping. And it's very hard to get someone out of a group or a belief system once they've snapped. And that's the case with a lot of oneness people, because oneness people don't have good answers generally for most Christians about the nature of the Trinity, how to answer certain verses and certain things. And so when they go to these oneness groups, oh, they got more answers, more questions that they can answer, but nobody else can. Boom, they believe, then it's hard to get in. It's not just as simple as, hey, we know that doesn't make any sense. Why would they believe it? Because
Right.
people are whacked.
Yeah. See, my situation is I've got a friend of mine, a guy I've become friends with who is a local pastor who started his own church, non-denominational, not a fan of denominations. And we got into this conversation through a separate thing on baptismal regeneration anyways, but he revealed some of those things about, in Jesus' name, and then talking about in the name of, meaning, not meaning by the authority of or whatever, and so that I was able to deduce his position, and he told me that he believes that he thinks that the oneness people are right, but that he used to be a Trinitarian. But whenever I try to tell him, okay, explain to me what the Trinity is, and he won't. He's just like, the God is three. And I'm like, okay, like, how do we run to that? And then he just kind of defaults to, and he's a nice guy, but he just kind of defaults to, well, it was made up at the Council of Nicaea by Constantine, who's done more to destroy the Christian church and whatever. And I'm like, what happened at the Council of Nicaea? What was that about? Like, just, I mean, give me a little more than that, So I was just kind of curious what the implications are in regards to salvifically, where you'd see things in scriptures other than, Jesus obviously not being the Father and those type of things, like, where it would work out that he was,
well,
outside of the camp.
It would appear that he's a false convert.
For him, I think, and that's what I said, but I'm of the position, I don't think he understands the Trinity.
Right.
And so I think it's an ignorance thing.
Yeah, and I was going to say that there can be people who don't know things, who could say that they're oneness and could still be saved, but they're just in error and confused. But it's those who know it well and continue to deny it, for example. Then you have to say, look, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're inside. You're a false convert. So this guy, it just might be that he just doesn't know, which is possible since you are asking the exact right questions. You perfect what you're saying there, and he's not able to answer them. So you need to spend time with them and go through. One of the things that I will do, maybe if you've got this feather in your hat yet, so to speak, or arrow in your quiver, I should say, is a point, is a lot of times when I talk to oneness people or whoever who deny the Trinity, I'll say, well, do you know two questions? And you already asked, what is it? And they often get that wrong. Rarely do they get it right. But the second question is, well, do you know how the doctrine of the Trinity is arrived at? And a lot of times I'll stare at you because they're not sure what you're asking. And I'll say, the reason I'm asking the question is because the Trinity is not arrived at by looking at a single verse. This is the Trinity, one God, three distinct simultaneous persons. It doesn't say that anywhere. So the doctrine of the Trinity is arrived at systematically by looking at the whole of Scripture. And I say to them, so if the Trinity is false, it's because that system is false. Do you know how it's arrived at, what that system is? How's it arrived at? Because that's the only way if you would know if it was false.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna have to sit down. I'm just gonna have to take the time to sit down and see if he'll go through it with me, because I have asked him, do you know how it's arrived at? Because he would default to saying the Shema, and I'm like, yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So if you think the Trinity is, then you're not understanding what it is. And then, sometimes he'll appeal because he's anti-denominational. And so he'll appeal to, that's Trinity's kind of a man-made doctrine. I'm like, well, your position is coming from something that you heard from some man too. So, I mean, that kind of falls short.
You could, say, well, is your doctrine a man-made one or derived out of the Bible? Derived out of the scriptures. Could you show me how it's derived out of scripture? Because he's going to have a system. Then I would let him.
Yeah, and I'm not sure.
Let him do that, and
Yeah, and
say,
I'm not sure how.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I'm not sure how influenced he is by the NAR, and if it's something in regards to just that type of theology. I don't know how much that's playing into a part of it.
What's happening to our spiritual country here? NAR, women pastors and elders, the denial of God's sovereignty, denial of the Trinity, moral relativism, sermons based on let's use God's word as a springboard for the real important message of my stories. What is happening?
People are creating God in their own image, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. But you're telling me like you're doing a good job. Seriously, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm just trying to understand. I care rather than just say you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm trying to understand what he actually believes about it. Because I can't. Otherwise, I'm just making up things, and he doesn't understand. It's not helpful.
Oh, I think you're doing a good job, and the questions you're asking, I think we're right on track. And the serious issue is the ultimate issue of the incarnation. And you could ask him those questions. How does that work? If there is no Trinity, how do you have an incarnation? And you got to be very careful because we don't want him to get emotionally defensive. But you could say, I'm curious how you would answer this. Not trying to be attacking, but I heard someone, you reference me or not, doesn't matter. I heard someone say that unless you believe in the Trinity, there's really no way to verify the true incarnation, which would affect the atonement. Could we talk about that? I'm just curious what you would think, that kind of an approach. See.
Yeah, that's what I want to learn more about, how it affects that type of thing.
You mean the modalism with the Trinity? I mean, with the incarnation?
Yeah, well, with the atonement and.
Well, let me work it out for you really fast. In order for the atonement to have divine value, there has to be a divine quality, and we see that the divine quality has to be life. Life, by necessity, has to have personhood, awareness, humanness. We have to have that. God himself has this issue of personhood. So in order for the atonement to have divine value, the one person, about the communicatio idiomatum, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the one person has the attributes of both natures, etc. And so that's why it has divine value. In oneness, how do you justify a true incarnation of the person of God? Because the person of God requires having a will, for example. We know that Jesus is not two persons, but one person, but he has two natures with two wills. And that's called ditheletism. And so what they're doing is essentially saying that there is no true incarnation of the Word, the second person of the Trinity, in human flesh. What's really interesting at our point here, we're going to maybe get into, is the person of the Word became flesh, and yet it's not Nestorianism, which would say the Word was a person and the human flesh was a person, because that's not the correct doctrine. And bridging that could be interesting to discuss through. But anyway, it has to do with the incarnation and the sufficiency of the word, of the divine quality, hypostatic union, communicatio idiomatum. How do you justify that in oneness when there is no true incarnation? Because who's left to run the universe? If the word is made under the law, cooperating with the limitations of the law, being in one place at a time.
Right. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, man. It's helpful.
Sure, man. No problem, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll be a wrap for tonight. There's going to be a Council Google Plus following this on this same YouTube channel, but not on the same podcast RSS feed. So if you are listening to this as a podcast and you want to hear the Council Google Plus, you'll have to do a search for the Council of Google Plus. little bit more of a free-for-all sometimes, get a lot of different discussions. I want to remind everybody here, what I started with is if you would like to, to help Matt Slick, to be a blessing to Matt Slick, and with their medical bills and things like that, you can go to patreon.com/Matt Slick. It is in the description of both the podcast and the video. So if you want to go and help Matt out, you can just go to patreon.com/Matt Slick. That would be a help to him, as some who paid attention or were here in the beginning know, as he described some of the things that's going on with his wife's health and the need that they have. So for those of you who've been blessed by Matt, those of you who are believers, this is an opportunity for you to be able to help a fellow Christian, especially one that has been a blessing to you. So I encourage folks to be doing that. Matt, anything else you want to share before we end?
No, I'll just keep you guys up to date, and I have information up on Facebook, Matt Slick Facebook page, and we'll just see what the Lord does. Don't know what. We're getting more details with each week, and we'll just give more information. What's going to happen or
All
not.
right. So if folks want to get more of Matt Slick, I encourage you to several things. One, CARM.org. You should go there, get a lot of your questions answered there. Matt Slick Live, that is a radio show he does. It is also, it's 13 different stations, but you can also get it as a podcast. So you can just do a search if you want on any podcast app that you have, and you'd be able to get those. You don't search for Matt Slick Live, though. You search for CARM Radio. It's under CARM Radio. So if you do a search for CARM, you'll get those 5 days a week. There's also, especially if you're in the Boise area, Matt does a weekly Bible study. That is also, though, online. They usually will have it on both Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch that there. And you can get all those details at carm.org, along with where you can donate to CARM to help not just Matt, because CARM is more than Matt. They have different people that do the writing, and they have different languages being translated into Spanish, Turkish. There's one other Portuguese. That's what is it. So that's what you'd be helping with your support if you care to do that. You're listening to this on the Bible Thumping Wingnut network. If you want to check out BibleThumpingWingnut.com, you'll get to hear the different podcasts and blogs that are out there. So I encourage you guys to do that. I guess I didn't promote my own ministry that I work for, but that's Striving for Eternity. If you care to check out any of the stuff that we have.
Hey, by the way, I've mentioned you on the radio a few times in the past couple of weeks.
Because you knew I was on a cruise and I couldn't listen, huh?
Yeah. I said, hey, check them out, Striving for Eternity. And then I told a joke about the conference.
Oh, no. Which one? Oh, the one with Justin? The joke with Justin?
Narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah. You're cutting in and out. I don't know why. But yeah, the joke he has is Justin Peters has Justin Peters Ministries. And so he was saying Justin's a narcissist, that I was Striving for Eternity Ministry. So he's saying that was synergistic. But then he was claiming he was monergistic, but I don't know how that fits in. I think he was just trying to find a way to make CARM be the right. Your internet's
all right.
Dropping out. All right. Well, thanks, folks. Glad to have you with us. We I was thinking of titling this "John Wilkinson Loses It." We'll think. Right now, I have the title as "Angry Atheists Refuse Logic." We're gonna title it that way.
Come on.
People are commenting already. Tim Hurd was saying that he just saw that John Wilkinson lost it. or something like that.
Hey, I'm sorry. I was gonna say I'm sorry. I just I'm working right now. I'm doing a graveyard shift, and so I just stepped into a big old deep puddle of water. My feet are soaking wet, and now I'm just the guy just denies that there's no such thing as babies. I mean, come on. I couldn't take it anymore. I really couldn't.
It was okay.
That's one for the classics. All right, folks. Thank you very much.
See you guys. God bless.